All right. Welcome, everybody, to today's Friday Fix. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is our monthly session that we run for Energy Advisor members. It's a free to use session available for members only. And the idea behind the Friday Fix is a short demonstration, presentation, seminar, something that will help you streamline your process as an energy advisor. Taking your best practices to daily practice is our tagline that we use. Today we've got a fabulous subject that comes up actually a little bit more often now more than ever, which is about protecting your practice and making sure that you as energy advisors are protected with your work on site, your work behind the scenes, and your work with helping this part of residential construction with all of your work as energy advisors. Before we get into introductions of our presenters today, I do have a couple polls that I want to run. This will give us a little bit of idea of who is in the virtual room with us, where you're joining us from, what kind of experience you have, things like that. So I'm going to start by sharing those polls first. The first one is, uh, where are you joining us from this morning? Are you on Vancouver Island, Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley, Okanagan Interior, Northern BC, Sea to Sky, somewhere else? Of course, anybody with an internet connection, if you are traveling, you can join today. Hopefully, you're not on an island somewhere on vacation having to take a break here, though. We've had that with some net zero training. We've had builders join us from their vacation, unfortunately. So we don't want that. Okay, so I'll share here. Looks like we've got a few from Vancouver Island, a few from Lower Mainland, the interior and Northern BC, which is great. And the next poll I'm going to launch here is what level of performance are the majority of your clients building to? Would you say it's building code basics, higher performance with step 4 or step 5, high performance with net zero or net zero ready, or whatever gets them occupancy? What would you say is typical for you?
Hey Vanessa, my kind of options disappeared on me. I don't know if anyone else had that.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see. I will see if I can relaunch the poll. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting me know. I wondered why nobody was answering that one. Okay. All right. Whatever gets them occupancy, fair enough. Building code basics, step code, local requirements. Yes, absolutely fair enough. All right. Excellent. Okay, so the way that we run the presentation is please feel free to send in questions as they come to you. We will address them towards the end of the presentation, but please feel free to put them in the chat and I will facilitate all the questions in the background and we will run through them towards the end of the presentation here. But to get into the details, I want to introduce you to Reza and his team. We have been working with Reza with Federated Insurance for years. They are a big supporter of all of our local associations. And I think it was around Christmas time that we started to talk about whether this would be a good partnership to do one of our Friday Fix presentations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Reza to introduce his team, and we will get into the presentation itself. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will facilitate in the background. And with that, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. I'm Reza. I work with association partners such as CHBA, local, provincial, and on a national level. We're all fortunate with Federated. We all work together under one roof. So we're vertically integrated. Whoever's got us as a policy, and we fortunately have them as a client, we all work for their success. So this brings us to today. Stefan is based East Coast. He's our premier underwriter relating to energy advisors. He's got a portfolio, but he's an expert in underwriting and recognizing risk and assessing operations for energy advisors. And Jacob is on the island right here in BC. And he's been on the ground floor of accepting and evaluating policies for energy advisors since the very beginning. I don't know, Jacob, I'm going to hand it over to you. How many years have you been taking care of our energy advisors?
Oh, since Federated kind of partnered with Casey. So I guess 2023, 2022, somewhere since then.
Thank you. And we're fortunate. Stefan is going to walk us through many of the risks that may not be obvious. And it's not only for energy advisors that, maybe like, you get up, you got your own business, you got responsibilities, and sometimes uh, the liability aspect and the operational aspect and what I's you need to dot and T's you need to cross are not top of mind. But he's seen it all across many provinces, and I'm very honored that he has taken the time to share his knowledge with us. So to you, Steph.
Thanks, Reza. That's really nice. I hope I live up to the expectation. It's nice to see everybody and meet everyone, and welcome to our Friday Fix session. So we'll dive right in. As Reza mentioned, Jacob and myself will be presenting today. I'm a senior underwriter here at Federated Insurance, and Jacob is one of our sales agents out in British Columbia. So with that, we're going to dive right in. So why this topic matters, right? So I'll let Jacob kick off, and then we'll sort of swap roles as we go through the presentation.
Yep. So as you know, probably better than us, the role of the energy advisor has been expanding basically since, Casey and Federated have been working together at least. So it's very important that the energy advisors are updating the insurer of kind of this expanded scope so that the insurance program can kind of expand alongside the energy advisor's operation. So just thinking back to about 2004, I believe, Federated worked with Casey with this new pilot project that was being released for air duct flow testing. Took a couple of weeks of back and forth, and it was something that Federated was, able to give that green light and incorporate into our insurance program. So scenarios like that, it's important to look at your insurance policy, not as kind of this static thing, but as kind of your service offerings are expanding, your insurance should be expanding alongside you.
Excellent. And as you guys are well aware, there's an increased involvement in building compliance in your industry. And with that also comes with a higher professional and financial exposure. We're seeing higher claims costs year over year as contractors and homeowners are trending with higher limit requirements. So insurance coverage overview. So we're going to be talking about these three general lines: error and omissions, as we like to call E&O, commercial general liability, or CGL, and then on-site and field work coverage. So with that, I'll let Jacob talk a little bit about errors and omissions.
Nice. So E&O is kind of the first pillar of your insurance policy. It's probably the main reason most energy advisors reach out to the insurance company to start with. It's covering you and your professional advice and services. So think breach of contracts, errors or omissions in your kind of report taking or information gathering, as well as kind of failure to satisfy a duty of care. So on this, think, a report due for a homeowner that isn't kind of completed in a efficient fashion. So it was a little tardy, and therefore that homeowner lost out on an opportunity. So a financial loss. So the key takeaway for E&O is a non-physical loss, so not actual property damage, that resulted in a financial loss. So think a project delay, for example. One other great value add I like to bring up for E&O is that whether you're found liable or not for kind of a project delay or an errors and omissions, it allows the insurance company, if you have E&O coverage, to assign a claims adjuster, assign a defense for you. So, obviously any claims process is going to be not the best feeling, a little bit of a headache, but having the insurance company be able to kind of quarterback that and help you out and help manage that process for you is going to be a value add, whether the actual coverage is applied or not.
Excellent, excellent. Now talking about liability and on-site risks. So for general liability, that's considered third-party property damage or bodily injury. So property damage could range from cleaning costs. So as an example, a blower door test spreading fireplace ashes across a home, right? The E&O policy wouldn't respond, but the general liability would respond because there's property damage there. Or bodily injury, such as a slip and fall. And then also a different example for property damage would be, you're in the attic, you're doing a walkthrough in there, and you happen to step through one of the joists and right through the drywall, right? That nightmare scenario, but your general liability policy would cover for the damage of that and fix the problem. I'll kick it off to Jacob to talk about some field-based activities as well.
Yeah, so where general liability and E&O liability is for third-party property, so the homeowners or the contractors' project sites. To get a fully encompassed insurance program, it's also important to insure your own tools and equipment. So that's where our tools floater comes in. It insures both your blower door test kits, laptops, which may be out in the field, both while at the job site or the project site, in transit between home and the project site, and while stored overnight at home or in your vehicle or wherever that may be. In general, like between insurers, coverage is very broad in terms of a floater, so it applies anywhere in Canada, so it's not location locked. So it's an important add-on, and honestly something that I see kind of missing on more policies than not. So it's a great one to kind of bring up and to explore.
Thank you. So now we're going to talk about common gaps and misunderstandings, right? So as we've sort of elaborated to while we walk through our three sort of coverage lines, we wanted to sort of bring light to some assumptions, right? So assuming liability insurance covers professional advice, typically most CGL policies or commercial general liability policies exclude the professional advice portion, right? Whereas E&O, that's what it's for. It's for the financial loss aspect of it, right? So that's why there's the two policies, is because one is excluded from the other, and together they sort of form the whole package, right? I'll kick it off to Jacob to talk a bit more about scopes.
Thanks, Steph. As I mentioned kind of on that earlier slide there, that scope of coverage, the insurer needs to be informed basically when you guys are adding on kind of added services or, expanding that energy advisor scope. It's something that, a lot of times is kind of just automatically renewed year after year, and maybe a couple of gaps in coverage are kind of going to be on that policy as a result. So going back to that 2004 kind of air duct flow testing. So a good rule of thumb is for your insurance policies, reach out to your agent or broker on an annual basis, probably around that renewal time, and just let them know if you've seen or you've been offering kind of any expanded services. So, maybe home inspections I'm seeing a lot of the time. Ideally, honestly, best practice would be any odd jobs that maybe come up, or, a larger job that traditionally you have maybe done something of that size. Drop a line to your agent or broker a couple of weeks in advance, just give them a heads up, and, allow them the opportunity to maybe run that by their underwriting department and give you that green light that, hey, your energy advisor program, we're comfortable with this risk, it's included in the coverage, and it'll take a lot of that uneasiness out of kind of the guesswork of your insurance.
Well said, Jacob. Perfect. So as I mentioned, CGL will exclude professional liability, and E&O excludes your own work. So professional liability picks that up, while both coverage CGL and E&O exclude your equipment, such as tool floater. So that's why there's a third form for that as well. So when you read through your policy and you see some exclusions, it's not necessarily oh goodness, I'm not covered for this at all. It could be that it's under a different form. Right. So that's why it's important to have those discussions with your broker if there are some exclusions or broker or agent, if there are some exclusions that are popping out at you, to make sure that you're appropriately covered, or no misunderstanding where, oh, yes, it's excluded here, but it's included under this other form or policy coverage that you have with you. Oh, pardon me. So with that, we're going to talk about some best practices for energy advisors. So you want to align your coverage with the actual scope of work. So as Jacob sort of mentioned, as your scope change, you want to make sure that your policy changes with it. So could be a job specific where some limits are required to be increased. So we've seen sort of a trend where your typical commercial general liability policy will be 2 million, but for this job specific one, it needs to be 5, right? So for that, have that discussion with your agent or broker, and they'll make sure that they bump that up for you and make sure that you're properly covered for it. And then I'll kick it off to Jacob to talk about industry experienced insurers.
Thanks, Steph. So working with industry experienced insurer, huge benefit for the energy advisor. It's going to save you time while setting up a policy. It's going to remove a lot of that uncertainty on what this policy is actually providing you. It's also going to allow, for a couple more in-depth conversations, and it's going to allow the agent or the broker to, recommend relevant coverages for you. So be that, cyber risk, be that errors and omissions, be that tools coverage. There are options for energy advisors to literally go online, input a couple pretty basic pieces of information, get a quote spit out for them, and kind of bind coverage on the spot. At the end of the day, that is insurance coverage, but just imagine all of those gaps that could be on that policy, just because, it's not your job to be an insurance expert. It's always helpful to be able to talk to a human, right? And then finally on this slide, document services responsibility clearly. Document. It's a business best practice. It helps avoid misunderstandings. It's also going to help any claims process, unfortunate as that may be, to proceed a lot smoother, right? Because you just have that documented process. You have maybe a liability statement on an invoice or a contract with your customers or homeowners. It's just going to save you a lot of time down the road setting it up now.
Excellent. Thank you. So why appropriate coverage matters? It's there to protect your business. It supports professionalism and credibility, as well as provides confidence for your clients and the regulators. And with that, some final takeaways. Insurance is part of the professional practice. Coverage should evolve around your role. So as it expands and changes, so should your coverage. Stay informed about the projects you're working on, and don't be shy to ask questions, which is a perfect kickoff to our final slide for questions. So feel free to dive on in.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I see a hand raised with Angel. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, everybody. This is perfect timing because my insurance renews, so thank you for the information. So I do have questions. E&O and general liability are pretty standard basics. What about things like cybersecurity, tenant liability, non-owned auto coverage, those types of things?
Steph, do you want me to take that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Right on. So cyber risk coverage, I'm finding more and more kind of prominent with my clients, just because of kind of the unknown risk behind it, right? Every day there seems to be a new kind of phishing scheme that could catch you. What it's doing, it's not a first party coverage necessarily. So it's not providing kind of costs to restore your data, but it is providing liability coverage. So there's fines related to kind of having personal information from your customers or homeowners leaked out. There's a credit monitoring charge, which you may have to offer to those who may be affected. So it's covering costs like that. It's a great point bringing up cyber risk, because Federated has released, and likely also other insurers have released kind of coverage which goes hand in hand, which is called cyber crime. And while cyber risk is third party, cyber crime is first party. So it's providing coverage for the cost to restore your own data. And even in events where e-transfers are kind of sent incorrectly, snagged halfway, or your systems are infiltrated and you have the wrong kind of email to be sending these to, it's coverage for those lost funds.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then non-owned liability, that goes hand in hand with general liability. It's baked into Federated policy, so I'm not sure how on other insurers it kind of boils down to. But what it does is it fills in a gap where, obviously in BC here, your vehicle is insured with ICBC. You have third-party liability on that as well. When you're using your personal vehicle on company business, technically speaking, if you are in an accident, the business can be looped into any kind of resulting claim because it is on kind of company time. So that non-owned liability kind of just fills in the gap where that general liability and ICBC liability would kind of fall off. That makes sense.
Yep, it does. Thank you.
Awesome.
Excellent.
And what was the third coverage? Sorry.
It was tenant liability. I've just gotten a couple of quotes, and so they're pushing me to give them an answer. But I said, wait, I have this webinar today. I need to ask some questions first.
No, fair enough.
It was listed as tenant liability.
Yep.
It's just included in the quote. There's no fee reduction if I don't sign on to that for this particular one. I work out of my home, so there's no lease or anything like that. But for others, that might come into play.
Gotcha. So yeah, really you want tenants legal liability for when you do rent that office space.
Mm-hmm.
General liability, there is an exclusion for third-party property when it is in your care, custody, control. So for kind of, let's say a carpentry contractor, that may be much more relevant when they're actually physically working on something. For an energy advisor, I would love to table that and get back to maybe Vanessa, who could send out an email afterwards on what might be deemed in the energy advisor's care, custody, control when you're out on a job site. But generally speaking, for all contractors with Federated, we do also provide that tenant's legal liability just to kind of fill in that gap again of that general liability. And as you mentioned, it is baked into a lot of these policies. So similar to kind of that non-owned liability. But general summary is that it is for those who rent an office space.
Okay, perfect. And that's it. Somebody else's turn. Thank you.
Cool.
Excellent.
Great questions.
I have a quick question follow-up. Can you tell us, Jacob, about the cost and the process for that cyber first-party coverage?
That's a great question. So cost is on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, there is an application which does need to be filled out, which the premium is based on what kind of cybersecurity the applicant has enforced. So, are they using kind of firewalls that are being updated on a regular basis? Do they have a plan of action if something is to happen in terms of that cyber? Very generally speaking, this coverage could range anywhere from $250 a year as an add-on. Up to $1,000 really. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on kind of the rough cost.
Yeah, and also I happen to also be part of our cyber team here at Federated, so I can add on a little bit to that, where for $50,000 in limit, you are looking at around that $300 premium range. It also covers notification costs, and what that means is as an individual or a company, you're responsible for your client's information. And when it is breached, you're also responsible to let them know, right? We've all seen emails from a huge company that's been breached, hey, your information might have been breached. That's a notification email, right? So we also, the policy or the coverage will also respond to that. It will pay for the cost of that subject to the limit. There's a lot of really good little coverages in there that we can, if needed, we can gladly give you guys a better breakdown of what we can offer.
Great. There's another submitted question here asking for clarification on equipment damage and theft. Are they covered under the on-site insurance if transported by personal car and not company car?
Simple answer is yes. Equipment damage and theft is probably one of the most common claims that we see at Federated. And yes, they are covered while in the personal car, while in transit. The ICBC policy, my understanding is that it's going to cover the vehicle itself and potentially any equipment that's permanently attached to the vehicle, but anything in the vehicle in terms of tools and equipment, which, you're moving around, they aren't going to be covered under ICBC, and they need to find that tools floater in order to find coverage.
Yeah, and I think it's the same for personal items as well, whereas your homeowner's policy or your contents coverage policy would respond to that while it's in transit. So, yeah, great question. Great question.
Excellent. And I have another one here. Do you have examples of where professional liability coverage would come online versus general liability coverage?
Steph, do you want that one?
Yeah, I can gladly take that one. So, so your professional liability, when you think about it, it's sort of advice driven, right? So you as an advisor, you're telling your clients that based on your assessment, everything is working as it should. And if you happen to be wrong or you made an error, that's where it would respond. Whereas your commercial general liability, again, as we've sort of discussed, is your property damage. You fell through the ceiling as you were doing an inspection on the attic. It's property damage. That's what your policy will respond to.
Yeah, and then maybe to build on that, on the energy advisor side, maybe you're giving an incorrect recommendation for heat pump sizing. I know sometimes is a service which some energy advisors are offering, or just a breach of contract with the homeowner. So they feel that you did not kind of hold up your end of the bargain, and therefore they're looking for maybe a reimbursement for a lost grant or a project delay in terms of maybe a renovation, something like this. Whereas general liability is direct physical property damage. So, you're on site, something gets broken, that's a general liability claim.
Excellent.
Can I ask a question, a follow-up on the E&O? So an E&O, it would, let's say you install the wrong size, say, pipes in a residence. So the E&O would pay for ripping them out, put them back in, and then loss of use during that time?
So I don't know if energy advisors actually install, right? Or they do more checks, right? I think they check everything, right? Yes,
Okay.
that's what I thought. So in that case, if they find that the piping that was used or whatever happened to be of the wrong size, then they can't proceed to give their sign off. So then that would fall on the contractor who installed it to respond, and that would fall on their contractor's E&O.
I see.
Which is two separate things. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good question though.
There's another one here in the chat. Is on-site insurance part of commercial liability?
If by on-site we're referring to the tools floater, then not by default, no. It would be a separate item on the insurance policy. Likely with the general liability, you're looking at a limit between maybe 1 million up to 5 million. With the tools floater, very likely it'll be a much lower limit, between maybe 5 and 25, or depending on how big the energy advising team is, right? So the tools floater is just covering the replacement cost of that tools and equipment, while the general liability is set to cover that homeowner's home or the contractor's project site.
And there's another one here. What steps can energy advisors take to limit their liability?
Document again. Have contracts in place with your homeowners or the contractors you're working with. A good tip is obviously, a lot of work is done over email. If an unhappy homeowner or a potential claim scenario does come through, don't archive that message after you believe it's dealt with. Have a dedicated folder for things like this, just so you have that kind of written track record in the future. I've seen many times where, everyone who's party to this kind of damage or this issue believes it's past, the issue's been put to bed, but then, 6 months later, it kind of resurfaces. And it's much more difficult to kind of get all of that information back if it's in your archive and potentially deleted, right?
Yeah, there's nothing better than the documentation and the claims adjuster would ask in that instance, and then it's just like stars align and we have everything that we need. So I agree.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do have another question. This is from me, and it more just came to mind when you started talking about installation and loss of use. Are there any risks to energy advisors if the contractors they're working with are not properly insured? Or are they insulated with their own? Meaning, if they had made a recommendation to the contractor that was not correct, something needed to be replaced in the home, but the contractor doesn't have proper insurance to do that. I'm just curious if what kind of overlap or what kind of risk is there in that relationship, if at all?
That's a great question. And honestly, to say that there would be no risk would be false. Whenever you're working with a contractor, I mean, them having their own liability insurance is going to make any claims process a whole lot smoother. Are you taking on their liability if they're not properly insured? No. That's a tough question, honestly, Vanessa. I'd want to run that one by kind of one of our claims guys and maybe getting back to you with kind of a more well-written up response.
Yeah, I would also add that it's if they're working for the contractor, it's a little different, right? Whereas they are the overarching, they're the head of the project and then everyone else underneath, right? But if they happen to be working for the homeowner and the contractor is sort of like they're both in the same place, those are two different things. So it is a very complex question that yeah, we want to answer that correctly for you guys. So we'll table that one and get back to you guys. Really great question.
But that is a great point by Steph there. The risk versus using a subcontractor that's not properly insured versus working for a contractor is quite different in the sense that if you hire a sub on the project site and they're not properly insured, that kind of chain of liability will lead back to the energy advisor much more simply than if it's the other way around and they're being hired by a contractor who's not properly insured. You just want to think of it as kind of the homeowners or, that main touch point of the plaintiff, whoever's starting this claim. In the event that the energy advisor is using a sub, they're likely working directly with that homeowner and they're that main point of contact, right? So in the homeowner's eyes, that subcontractor is maybe part of the energy advisor's team, and therefore they're filing their grievance directly with that energy advisor. Versus with a contractor, right? That contractor is kind of handling that project site themselves, and then bringing in the energy advisor as a sub. So it's not as likely that liability will be passed down to the subcontractor. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Excellent. Are there any other questions from our group here? Feel free to enter in chat or have your hands up. If there's anything else, you can unmute yourself or ask for some clarification. Please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we will be sending out a copy of this presentation on Monday with some information in that email of contact information. So if you have any other questions, you can reach out directly. And also, I think there was a couple items here that we'll include as a response to additional information provided back to you as well for that question that we had from Angel as well. Okay. I'm not seeing any other further questions coming in, so I think we can end it here and let everybody have the rest of their Friday afternoons back. Thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for the content today. That was very, very well done, and certainly something that is on the minds of energy advisors often, especially since the keyword that I often hear is liability. Every time there's a code change or every time there's a change in local municipal requirements, how does that affect the energy advisor and their liability? So we do want to make sure that those folks are protected out there on site, both physically and down the road. So I really appreciate all the information. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll end it there.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks for putting this together.
Absolutely.